Hello and welcome to Getaway Day. My name is Gautam, his name is Mason, and we are talking about the top 10 players in baseball, pitchers and hitters. We're going to get into that a little bit later on. If you enjoy this podcast, subscribe on your favorite podcasting app and YouTube to make sure you don't miss any future episodes. Make sure you let us know your thoughts in the YouTube comments, leaving a review on Apple Podcasts, or reaching out to us on Twitter and Facebook at Getaway Day Pod. Check out additional content on Instagram and TikTok at Getaway Day Pod. How are you doing today, Mason?
Not too shabby. I working hard, which is kind of rare for me, to be honest. But I have been opening a lot of baseball cards too. So it's been pretty worthwhile because work hard all day, play hard all night. I did record a mail day video for this week. And if you guys may have noticed, you didn't get a notification for it on YouTube for Getaway Day Pod. That is because I have started selling some of my baseball cards with the intention of buying even more. So I'm going to be doing a lot more videos and didn't really want to completely bog down the YouTube channel for the podcast where people can't actually find the podcast. So on YouTube only, we have spun off a secondary channel called Getaway Day Cards. And just a little sneak peek of what you may see if you look at this week's Mail Day video. I've done a lot of Topps Finest. So we've got this is from the insert set. This is the Topps Finest Cornerstone Nolan Arenado. This is the regular one, but I also have a black and gold, which is not numbered, but it is one in every 368 packs, which is roughly 8 cases of this. And then I also have the gold out of 50. So I am halfway to having the rainbow, and that is something that I'm planning on trying to do for that channel and for my own collection. So to follow us on Getaway Day Cards over on YouTube if you enjoy baseball cards.
Sounds good. Definitely be checking that out. So before we get into the main topic, we're going to knock out a couple news and notes kind of things. We're so close to baseball being back. We are about 50 days away from opening day, less than 3 weeks until the first spring game, and less than a week now until pitchers and catchers report. So with this new season, some teams are making some changes in the American League, including the Blue Jays and the Tigers. So in Rogers Center, what are the Blue Jays doing with their dimensions of their ballpark?
Well, so before I talk about the dimensions, the Blue Jays are changing a ton of stuff. They're doing full-on renos of the Rogers Center. Go look that up. We're not going to deep dive into that, but the dimension changes are a part of that. So they're adding in elevated bullpens into the outfield, and as such, they kind of need more space out there for the bullpens. So what they're doing is the left field line is staying the same to 228 feet. The right field line, same thing, but they're increasing the walls there. So they're not moving the corners, but they're raising the walls. Theoretically, it would make everything a little bit tougher. Where things get interesting is in the outfield. So left center field used to be 375 feet. And this is known as a hitter's ballpark, right?
Absolutely, yeah.
Okay, so if you're changing the dimensions of a hitter's ballpark, you would think that you would go backwards, right?
Well, the way you're leading this question, I don't think that's what they did.
It is not what they did. They are bringing left center into 368 feet. So in 7 feet, they are increasing the walls to 11 feet 2 inches from, I think, 10 feet high. Right center field is coming in even more. It's going from 375 to 500 to 359 feet. That is so ridiculously short.
Yeah.
But they're increasing that wall height to over 14 feet. So they're doing a similar thing in the power alleys where the left field or the left center power alley only coming in 2 feet, but the right center power alley is coming in an entire 10 feet. So you're taking a hitter's park and making it even more of a hitter's park, even though your intention is to make it, how did I phrase it earlier? Trying to make it neutral, a neutral change to pitchers and hitters outcomes.
Yeah, and so that was a great detailed description of everything that they're changing to all the dimensions. But the summary version is that they're making the walls higher. They're bringing in some of the dimensions uh, in the corners and also in the alleys, and then they're also making the wall asymmetrical rather than just rounded the way it's been in the past. So the other effect of that is there's going to be some weird bounces off these new tall walls. And I was just looking on Baseball Savant here at the park factors. So Rogers Center, the 3-year rolling average for home runs was ninth in the majors in terms of being ninth most friendly to home runs. The other thing I noticed was that triples, Rogers Center was 28th in the league. And that's probably because there's nowhere weird that the ball can bounce. So maybe with these big walls, you're going to see more triples at Rogers Center. I feel like you're going to see more home runs too with the reduced wall distances, even though the increase in height is probably going to keep some of those in the park.
Yeah, this is definitely going to be some pretty big changes to Rogers Center, and it's going to be really interesting to see how it plays. I mean, you've got such young, exciting talent there anyway, and guys who are pretty quick, can get around the bases in like Bo Bichette. You've got massive power in Vlad. You've got all around guys in Springer. And so this is going to be really interesting to see how this plays this year. So.
Yeah, and one other thing I just am thinking here: are they making this kind of change because of the personnel that they actually brought in to play the outfield? They brought in an elite center field defender in Kevin Kiermaier. They brought in Dalton Varsho, who's an awesome outfielder, and then they moved George Springer over to right field so he doesn't have to play the more demanding center field. So they've got a pretty awesome outfield defense right now, and maybe that's something they can rely on more, because I wouldn't have necessarily classified the Blue Jays as an elite defensive team or anything like that in the past, but it seems like they're going to try to do that to maybe combat Rogers Center being a more difficult place for their pitchers to actually pitch.
Yeah, I don't know if that might have been a small thought, but I doubt that was a huge factor in it, because I'm not sure how easy the process is to propose these changes to Major League Baseball and get the AOK, or if they even have to. Maybe they can just do it.
That's a good question.
But I'm guessing that there's a little bit more foresight into the next couple of years than so much. This group of fielders is phenomenal. Let's just make it so we can hit homers easier and make it so that they just have to still be good and we're good to go. Now, are they going to take advantage of it with that core? Absolutely. I don't know if it was the driving factor, though. So.
Yeah, that definitely makes sense. Yeah. And then in Detroit, they made some changes to their ballpark too that are not quite as drastic as what we're going to see in Toronto, but they did reduce their just absolutely
massive,
way too far away dead center field dimension, which was 422 feet.
Correct.
And is now reduced to 412 feet, which is still extremely deep. I think it's the second deepest center field in all of baseball, but now it's not like by a landslide like it was in the past. Yeah. So you're going to see more home runs to center field. It's pretty clear.
Well, and it's just barely the second deepest now, right? Because it's 415 to dead center in Colorado?
I'm not sure about that, but I believe it.
But which makes sense, because I mean the ball flies in Colorado a little bit better than it does in Detroit.
Yep.
But yeah, so they brought it into 412. And the other thing that they did, and this is maybe a little bit under talked about, is the walls in Comerica Park are 8.5 feet all the way around. But now, from basically left center where that wall starts, all the way to the right field foul pole, they're reducing it to 7 feet. So it's going to make a pretty, I don't want to say significant difference in home run totals there, but you would expect that some of these lefties that are maybe hitting the top of the wall, now they're going to be home runs if they're not robbed. So they're definitely making it a more hitter friendly park. It's definitely not going to become ninth best park in the majors for hitting home runs like Rogers Center.
But it was literally Comerica Park, literally last in Major League Baseball,
which makes sense because it was a freaking huge outfield.
They also have bad players, which is probably screwing with the park factor a little bit. But let's not talk about that.
They have 100-year-old Miguel Cabrera. They're fine. Right? They probably still throw V-Mart out there. Who knows?
Yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing if we get more robbed home runs or more home runs hit. Let's see Riley Green rob some homers.
Oh, that'll be fun. Can we get Dowell Lugo back?
That's a blast from the past.
Not really. It's only been like 3 years.
It feels like an eternity ago.
Yeah. But
former top prospect Dowell Lugo. Okay, so
he was a former top prospect?
I think he was a pretty big prospect, yeah.
Oh, he's a bust and a half. Oh my Lord. Yeah. All right, so what else is happening in baseball?
So automatic ball strike is coming to AAA. So robo-umps are finally here. They're just on the doorstep of the major leagues now, which means that all the ballparks in AAA are now equipped with Hawkeye technology, which is the optical tracking capability that basically allows us to have all the data of what's going on in these games. We already have that at the major league level in the form of StatCast. So now we'll basically be able to get all that information for the AAA level, which is super awesome for people like me who like to learn more about these young guys coming up. And the more information, the better.
Yeah. So it'll be interesting to see if they try and market it, because like it's the same thing as StatCast. It's just how much of the data are they going to publish publicly, and then out of that, like, are they going to try and promote it with that? Are they going to try and use this to help like show off some of their younger players that are coming up? Because this is actually a huge marketing tool for Major League Baseball that I think if they do it right, this could be really big for getting people back into the sport, because you're showing not just Ohtani doing ridiculous things. You're showing who's not like your first reach at like a big AAA, who's like a out of the weeds AAA guy right now.
Ooh, putting me on the spot here.
Yeah, I know. I tried to do it myself and couldn't.
Matt Mervis.
Okay, yeah, now we're going to see the crazy things that Matt Mervis does and why he is such a big deal in the Cubs organization, and it'll help the common fan start to see a little bit more of these other prospects that are not listed in the top 100. So it could be really, really, really cool. We're definitely going to need to have some workshop sessions where Gautam teaches everyone what it all means. We can try and work those into the calendar. I got Thursdays at 2:30 p.m. Does that work for you? I'll grab a conference room. It'll be great.
2:30 to 3.
2:30 to 3:15. We got to give a little bit of extra time because people are always late.
Okay.
All right.
Yeah, that'll work. I do have one nit with StatCast that I wish they hadn't done, is put those red, white, and blue sliders on the main page of people's Baseball Savant page, because those are very influencing, and they don't necessarily mean that the player is good or bad based on the color of their percentiles. And I think people like to rely on those a lot to make their final decisions on whether a player is good or not.
Yeah, I definitely need to dive more into StatCast. I tend to just like focus on the main pages of Fangraphs, but I could definitely see how that would be a bit of a red flag for people. So
right. Okay, so one more topic here, and then we'll get into the main topic. Unsigned free agents. We got a week to go before spring training really kicks off here, there's a lot of good free agents that are still out there, and they do not have homes yet. And I'm trying to pull that up real quick here.
Right. So let's see. We've got
guys like Elvis Andrus, Jerkson Profar, David Peralta, Michael Waka, Matt Moore, Gary Sanchez, Jose Iglesias. None of these guys are star players, but they're quality big league players, and they can definitely help teams. Why have we not seen any moves in the last week or so? Wouldn't these guys be itching to join teams?
You would think. It's a little odd, especially with like the number of non-roster invitees by some teams. Like I think you said the Cubs are at what, 32?
Right. Yeah.
Like you would think that would be the perfect opportunity for a guy like Andrew Chafin to come in and get a contract, or a guy like Michael Fulmer is a reliever, or even Gary Sanchez. How is he not like a backup catcher DH for somebody at this point yet?
Yeah,
like
pretty surprised.
Like I get it with maybe a couple of these guys having to wait. Jerkson Profar is such a young guy. It seems like he would have had a contract by now. Someone would have taken a flyer on him. Elvis Andrus is one of those that maybe people are looking at the age and it's just kind of the time where he's going to start fading out. Because I mean, he literally didn't get re-signed by the A's, so
maybe it's kind of like a situation where we're so close to spring training, they'll let the players report to their teams, and then they'll kind of take a survey and see, oh, where's my best opportunity to make a team and get the most playing time or whatever. Maybe that's the calculus.
Yeah, perhaps. But like, there's definitely some of these guys that should 100% already be on a team. And the fact that they're not is weird. Luke Voigt is another one that comes to mind. Like, there's a lot of teams who could probably use a DH. Why not?
Yeah.
And it's not like all these guys are big clubhouse cancers by any means. So we don't have any Jonathan Papelbons on the list. So, Hunter Strickland's,
Oh, gosh. Yeah.
I pretty much nailed it with those two, didn't I?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Those closers, guys, right?
Yeah, they don't let Bryce Harper near him.
No. Okay, so today's main topic is inspired by MLB Network's tradition of ranking their top 10 players right now at each position. We don't have the time to do each position, so we're going to limit it to position players and pitchers. We've each prepared a top 10 list of these guys, and we're going to just reveal them one by one and talk about them and why they belong on this list. So just for a little bit more context of what MLB Network kind of does, so they have a list for catchers, and they've got JT Realmuto as number one. He was also number one last year. It goes 1 through 10, down to number 10, Tyler Stevenson. Do the same thing for each position, and it's just a fun way to be thinking about how many top 10 players do you have at all your positions for your favorite team. Do you even have any guys in these top 10 lists? And just inspires some conversation and debate about people's lists and things like that. So hopefully we can spark some of that today with our lists. We can vehemently disagree about John Birdie being the number one player in the league.
I actually was going to say Zach Birdie being the number one pitcher in the league.
Okay.
So this is real awkward that we've got both birdies at number one. But,
yeah.
All right, number two.
Okay, so let's get started with pitchers. What do you say?
Well, I should probably switch to the correct screen for that. Let's do it. Pitchers.
Sure.
We're going to go from 10 to 1?
That sounds good.
Okay. Who goes first?
I'll go first.
Let's do it.
Ready? So my number 10 starting or pitcher in Major League Baseball right now is Austin Nola. Aaron Nola. Sorry, I can't even say his name right. Aaron Nola, Philly starter, basically a major workhorse. He was near the top in innings pitched last year, and basically the last 5 years, he's near the top of the list, if not number one. I love something about his windup. It feels very old school. He's got a great curveball. He has insanely good control and command, which is not something that is necessarily emphasized in today's game of baseball. But he just does not walk people. This past season, he had a 1.27 walks per 9 innings, which equates to a 3.6% walk rate, while he struck out 29% of batters. Pitched in the playoffs, had some great starts as part of the Phillies' postseason run. And he's a guy that, he's had some blow-up starts. He's had some trouble with the home run ball and everything. So maybe he doesn't get the same recognition, but just based on his durability and his combination of great velocity, strikeout rate, amazing control, a lot of pitches. I mean, top 10 pitcher in the league. I put him at number 10.
I like that pick. Yeah. So Aaron Nola is not on my list. So I need to preface this with, I gave myself basically top 8s and 2 prospecting picks is how I did mine. Because I think there's a lot of young guys who have a really good shot at breaking out this year and being in the top 10 by the end of the year. So I wanted to do something a little different and try and prospect 2 of them for both hitters and pitchers. So Aaron Nola, if I was looking at today, absolutely probably number 9 on my list, to be honest with you. But I'm actually, we got to put yours here in the list so that they can see it. Aaron Nola. My number 10 guy, big prospecting pick, but I don't know that anyone is going to argue that he is not going to be phenomenal in his career. And that's Hunter Greene of the Cincinnati Reds. Hunter Greene definitely had a little bit of an interesting first taste in the majors last year. In 125 innings, he had a 4.44 ERA, a 4.37 FIP. So really, if you're looking at those 2 numbers, you go, so it was true, and it wasn't really all that great. Where Hunter Greene really stands out to me is in his velocity and his strikeout stuff. In 125 innings, he had 125 strikeouts. He throws his fastball like 102 as a starter. Like, he's very much giving me DeGrom vibes in a guy who is 22 years old. So if he can get his walk rate down from 9%, somewhere around like that 6%, and the defense behind him helps out a little bit, you could see Hunter Greene with a pretty low 3 ERA pretty easily. Especially
if Hunter Greene gets the walk rate down to 6%, he'll be the best pitcher in the league. He doesn't even need to do that, and he can still be great.
That's
but if
true.
he did that, that would be
the biggest thing for him last year, and same thing at AAA, was the home run bug. He gave up home runs on 16% of his fly balls, which is pretty darn high. So if he can figure out how to keep the ball down, his sinker ball down, and not let people elevate, he's going to be just fine. And he really does give me Jacob deGrom vibes. And so I really like him to break out this year. I mean, he had a pretty solid first season. So
yeah, and I think you were reading the season-long numbers, kind of hides the fact that the breakout was already happening in the second half after he came back from the injury. Second half, he pitched 46 innings. He had a 1.75 ERA. He struck out 36% of guys. His fastball is up to 99.8 miles per hour in the second half. He was dominant. So
yeah,
he's got that in him. And if he puts that together for a full season, I got no problem with putting him at number 10 on the list.
In fact, it might be a little low.
Yeah, who knows?
Yeah.
The sky's the limit for this guy. Okay. Moving up my list, I've also got a young player. He's sort of already had his breakout here. You're going to come to see that my list is very crusty. It's a lot of very old guys who are still on top of their games. But this guy is the youngest pitcher on the list. It's Rookie of the Year. No, I don't think he won Rookie of the Year. Second in Rookie of the Year, Spencer Strider of the Atlanta Braves, who just he kind of came out of nowhere. To me, like I kind of heard his name at the end of 21. Seemed like he might be a reliever. Then he just started the season in the bullpen and then quickly made his way into the rotation and was amazing for the rest of the season until he got hurt. So the biggest thing for him is just keeping healthy for a full season. He's less established than the rest of the guys on my list, but he struck out like 38% of batters.
Yeah, 200
rookie season,
202 strikeouts in 131 innings.
Yeah, that is. I don't think that's ever been done by any pitcher.
I think so. And he set multiple records. By the way, Spencer Strider, also my number 9.
All right, cool.
But yeah, he set multiple records for Brave starters. He set strikeouts in a game, passing John Smoltz at 15. I'm trying to think. I think he had another one that was a pretty big one. Yeah, you were putting stuff up in hitters, by the way. So I fixed it for you. But like, this kid has the it factor. I don't know what it is. Literally never knew the kid before this
quads.
Last year.
It's his massive quads.
It's gotta be. Have you seen those things? They're tree trunks.
Yeah.
But no, like he absolutely blew everyone out of the water last year. And if he hadn't gotten hurt and he would have pitched probably around 150, 160 innings, rookie of the year would have been his. Well, I say that. Michael Harris was pretty darn good. But I don't know. I thought it was Spencer Strider's. He didn't end up getting it, but he definitely deserves to be a top 10 pitcher on this list.
Okay.
All right.
So your number 9 already came through. Do I go again here? Do you want to go?
I could go now. We'll change it up a little bit. Let me.
Yeah.
I'm having to type in each individual player as we talk about them, just because I can't have 8,000 tabs or the stream's going to crash. So it takes me just a minute. All right. So my next guy, number 8, and this is maybe doing him a little bit of a disservice having him this far down. Sandy Alcantara. Sandy Alcantara is probably the most durable pitcher in baseball. Period. 228 innings pitched last year. 228 and 2/3 innings pitched last year. He led the majors in innings pitched, and he just so happened to do that for a Marlins team that couldn't really hit the ball, couldn't really field the ball, still pitched to a 2.28 ERA. With what was it, like a 23% K rate, a 5% walk rate, and it just flat out dominated last year. So I feel bad putting him down at 8. The only reason I put him down this low is because a couple of the guys above him, I think, might be a little bit more flashy. And to me, as just a common fan, flashy kind of stands out. And I do have concerns about Sandy being able to repeat some of his numbers because of the defense behind him. So I think looking at his overall stats for next year, they might not look as good, but he is going to look as good. So that's kind of the other critique there that puts him down at 8, and it has nothing to do with him.
Yeah, he's on my list too. I've got him as number 5. And I'll just add a couple more things about him. You mentioned that, he plays for the Marlins. They're not a great team. Probably defense is going to be awful up the middle. We talked about that last week. Every time he goes out there, he probably is, maybe he's not thinking this because he's probably just thinking about pitching, but he maybe a little bit in the back of his mind, he's thinking like, I got to be perfect today. My offense is going to score like 0 runs, 1 run, or 2 runs today. And if I don't pitch better than that, we're going to lose this game. And he goes out there every start, every 5 days. I believe he is the innings pitched leader for 19, 20, and 21, 19, 22, and 21 combined. And he goes deep into these starts every game, and he gives up like 2, 1, or 0 runs in every start for the most part, aside from a couple blow ups. So he keeps them in every ball game, even though they're the Marlins. They have an awful offense. Doesn't give up homers. Doesn't really walk people. The strikeout rate's not amazing, but he just induces that terribly weak contact that just gets eaten up, and that power sinker is just keeping the ball on the ground, keeping the ball in the yard. So he's a guy that, I'd want him in like a do or die game to pitch.
Yeah, I agree 100% with that. All right, so that's your number 5 guy, but who's your number 8?
My number 8 guy is Brandon Woodruff, pitcher for the Milwaukee Brewers. He's a guy that I feel like maybe gets a little overshadowed because he's behind Corbin Burns, and Corbin Burns gets all the hype all the time. But Brandon Woodruff, he's like the most consistent pitcher in baseball over the last 5 years. He just year after year puts up great seasons. I'll just tell you like his strikeout rates the last 4 years: 29%, 31%, 30%, 31%. Always pitches a lot of innings. Aside from this past year, he struggled with that weird Raynaud syndrome where he lost feeling in his fingers. He came back from that, and people were kind of worried, like, oh, this guy had this weird injury. Is he going to be okay? And he came back, and he was just lights out in the second half. 2.55 ERA, 103 WHIP. He throws 4+ pitches, I would say. So his just wide arsenal, good velocity, really great control. I mean, what's there not to like about Brandon Woodruff?
I can think of one pretty big thing.
He's on the Brewers.
He's on the Brewers.
Instead of the Cubs, yeah. Agreed.
Yeah. So we have to see him a lot, and I'm not a big fan. Also, he seems to hit more home runs than a lot of other pitchers. So yeah. Also, he looks like I really just want to have a beer with him. And because he's a Brewer and it dominates the Cardinals, I really want to hate him, and I can't. Like, that's my biggest thing with Brandon Woodruff. But, no one asked me. So, yeah. I mean, I didn't have Brandon Woodruff on my list, to be honest. I thought about him at number 10 before I added in Hunter Green and Spencer Strider, but ultimately I wanted to go with the more prospecting side, so he did get left off mine. However, I have a feeling that the other guys we've got are all going to be kind of similar.
I think so.
So I'm going to go straight into my number 7. My number 7 is probably going to be the oldest pitcher on this list. Yeah, he's definitely going to be the oldest pitcher on this list. 40 years old. Coming into this season. Coming into last season, he was still one of the older pitchers in baseball. 39 years old. Coming off of Tommy John surgery, Justin Verlander. Now, Justin Verlander, at 39 years old, coming off Tommy John, nobody would have expected that man to come out and pitch how he did last year. He came out 175 ERA, a 249 FIP, in 175 innings over 28 starts. So not quite a full 35 start season, but he got close, especially coming off a pretty big injury like torn UCL. He still kept the strikeouts up, striking out 185 batters. His fastball velocity still sitting at 95 average, a 95.1 average. Like, he doesn't look like he's regressing at all. The biggest thing that I noticed that points to regression, and it does not point to regression, but you could almost kind of argue, is that it was the third season of his career that he did not pitch 200 innings, and he pitched 175.
And that's coming off Tommy John. I don't think you can ding him for that.
Exactly. Yeah. But you go look at his game log. There are only 4 games where Justin Verlander gave up more than 4 runs. There are only 3 games where he pitched less than 5 innings. And he pitched 28 games. So he was consistent as hell. There was a stretch of games where he pitched 6+ for, I want to say it was like 15 or 16 starts last season. Like, he flat out dominated. And even if he regresses, from that, like he's still one of the best pitchers in baseball. So,
Yeah.
like the only ding that brings him down to 7 is that some of the other guys are maybe a little bit younger, and I'm a little bit more sure that they're going to keep repeating. But there's nothing that says Justin Verlander's slowing down at all.
Yeah. And normally we'd say, okay, 40-year-old guy, like probably gonna fall off a cliff at some point, but there is like there's nothing that makes me think that he's not gonna have another great season this year. Just the person that he is and his track record and what he just did, like I'll be severely shocked if he is like bad this season. He's gonna be very good at the minimum.
Yeah.
So I had him as number 3. So
Okay. Yeah, my list is definitely going to be pretty controversial. I can tell you that right now.
Okay. Okay, I'm gonna go to number 7 on my list, and that's Carlos Rodon. Carlos Rodon, he's a little bit different than these guys because he doesn't have the near the track record as like a Verlander or even Sandy Alcantara. But the last 2 years, guy is dominant. That's why he's on this list. He strikes everybody out. Last year, he put up a full season with more than 170 innings pitched. So that's why he goes on the list. Like, I think he's going to be totally fine with the Yankees. Amazing slider, just super hard fastball, weird kind of angle as a left-handed pitcher. Yeah, Carlos Rodon.
I had Carlos Rodon as my 1A, as you see here on this list. 1B is where we're starting. So he's not going to be written on my half, but yeah. No, Carlos Rodon is a phenomenal pitcher. He's definitely changed his game a lot in the last 2 years. Just his entire like pitching mechanics have changed. He's got it down to 3 pitches instead of 5 or 6. And so the only reason that I don't have him on here is because with the current way that he pitches, it's only a 2-year track record, and he's had injuries in the past. And like in one more year, and 100% on my list here, 100%. But for me personally, to put him up above some of these other guys that I've got on the list, I kind of need one more year. And I know probably who I would bump him in, but I need one more year. Yeah.
Okay.
So
who do you got as number 6?
Number 6 is the second oldest pitcher on this list. And this is why I'm getting controversial, because I'm putting 2 of the absolute best pitchers in baseball, first ballot Hall of Famers, down at 6 and 7. Number 6, Max Scherzer, 38 years old last year, continuing to dominate hitters. 145 innings. That's a pretty big key there. 145 innings only, but 173 strikeouts. His fastball velocity down for him, still 94.1 average. Dude still cranks it out to about 99 when he's mad. He strikes out everybody and their dog. It pitched to a 2.29 ERA, a 2.62 FIP, and he benefits now from having a pretty phenomenal defense behind him, I would say. Like, there's everything is pointing to him continuing to be great. He's a little bit older. Some people would ding him, but he, just like Justin Verlander, until they actually put up bad results, we throw that out the window. And it has to be 2 years of bad results before I say anything about them being pretty close to the end. Yeah, but 30.6% K rate, 4.2% walk rate. Like, both those numbers are staggering. And God, now I feel like I should have put him higher. I feel bad. Well, I can't change it now, though.
You could.
I could, but I don't want to.
Bump him up. I also had him as number 6, so I don't really have anything to add. Like, I agree completely. He's awesome. He's Max Scherzer.
All right.
Okay. Do you want to catch up to me with your number 5?
Yeah, let's do it. So my number 5, and we're going back to the youth movement here. Sugar Shane McClanahan. And this one is definitely a bit more gut feel than track record because, I mean, his track record is pretty small. Only pitched 2 seasons so far. 25 starts in 2021, 28 starts in 2022 for a combined 289 innings. However, in those 2 seasons, he's pitched a 2.92 ERA. He's thrown 194 strikeouts. So not quite on the same strikeout level as we've been talking about with some of these other guys, especially Hunter Green and Spencer Strider, the 2 that I think are probably more closely comparable to him, just from the track record, age, all that stuff. But he has a minuscule walk rate, still very respectable K rate. And he's so fun to watch. I mean, we watched McClanahan and Ohtani pitch against each other in LA last year. And I don't think I was ever more enamored in a pitching matchup than that. Like, there's something about this guy that I don't even need to see his stats, and I know that he's an elite pitcher. Like I said, it's a bit more gut feel on this one.
Yeah, I'm totally with you. I didn't have him on my list just because of the short track record. He was that elite pitcher for the first half of 2022. He got injured, and then he really struggled when he came back. But there's no way I'm counting him out from being on this list for me, maybe a year from now or halfway through the season, even if he gets back to what he was doing before. Like, he obviously belongs in this group.
Yeah. All right, number 4. Who you got?
Number 4, I've got Garrett Cole. Be curious to see where you have him. I feel like he's one of those guys that lots of people have different opinions about Garrett Cole. But the thing about Garrett Cole is that he's got all the physical traits of like a dominant number 1 starter. He's been that guy. He's won a Cy Young. Throws really hard. He's got all the smarts and knows how to really execute his game plans, and for the most part does really well. He's got this one flaw that people have really honed in on, and that's his home run problem. I've been saying this for a while. Like, one of these years, he's going to have a normal home run rate, and he's going to lead the league in ERA and probably win the Cy Young that year. He strikes out everybody and their dog and their cat. And I guess, like, why are people down on Garrett Cole? The guy's amazing. Like, he's I think maybe it's just his personality more than anything.
So check out the spreadsheet there.
Number 1. Okay.
Number 1. Yeah.
So I don't have to convince you.
No, exactly everything you just said. And honestly, the home run number did cross my mind. I kind of wrote it out because, 1, he pitches half his games at Yankee Stadium. Yeah, your home run rate's going to be a little bit higher. And so his home run rate being a little bit higher than it used to be, meh, that kind of makes sense.
This past season, it was super inflated. I think it was like 1.5.
1.48
innings. Yeah, so about 1.5 per 9 innings. That's majorly inflated, even if it comes down a little. And with that, he was still able to achieve like a 3.50 ERA.
Yep, a 3.50
which is
ERA.
Not a bad number.
And like everything else you said, like, yeah, 257 strikeouts over 200 innings. Like, his walk rate, 6%. Like, the only thing about him is the home run rate. It's it's kind of unnaturally high in 2022. So you would expect it to naturally regress now, at least a little bit. And at some point, there's going to be, he's going to figure that out and be able to keep the ball down at least once. I mean, hell, when he was back in Pittsburgh early in his career, his home run rates were pretty minuscule. Granted, National League Central, not really the best home run hitters in 2014 through 2016. Could have been a factor. And now he's in the American League East. But I mean, that's kind of why I've thrown it out the window and don't really care. Like, it's the American League East. Hitters ballparks, some of the best hitters most of the best hitters in the league, all in that one division. So.
Okay. So I got Cole at 4. You got Cole at 1.
Yeah.
Who's number 4 for you?
A guy who, if he could stay healthy, would be my number 1. But I really only expect to see him pitch out of maybe 100 innings, 120. Think you know who I'm going with?
Yep.
Yeah. It's Jacob deGrom. And, most talented pitcher in baseball, 100%. Absolutely, not a doubt in my mind. The dude puts up like prime Chris Sale numbers for strikeouts. Like, his strikeout rate is literally 14 per 9 over the last 2 seasons.
Over 40%. So what Edwin Diaz did this past season with the 50% strikeout rate, he's doing that, close to that, as a starting pitcher. Yeah.
Yeah, his batting average against 173 last year, and that was honestly on the high end for him recently. This dude's just so good. 3% walk rate. Like, he walks nobody at all. Like, he's easily the most talented pitcher in baseball. He should be number 1. The biggest thing is that he only pitched 64 innings last year, 92 in 2021. He pitched more innings in the 2020 shortened season than he did in 2022. And that's really, really telling to me that it's hard to be the best pitcher in baseball when you're the least on the field pitcher in baseball.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So.
Yeah, I was going to try to make a case for deGrom and not mention injury, because it's pretty much impossible to have any conversation about the guy without talking about his bad health, unfortunately. Yeah. But yeah, guy in 2021, when he put up a 108 ERA and a 0.55 whip over those 92 innings, every start of his was like must watch, can't miss, because you know he's going to go 6. Well, he wasn't going deep into games, but he was going like 5, 6, 7 innings in all of those starts, giving up 0 or 1 run pretty much every single time out. And that was the last year of hitting pitchers too. He was actually like getting hits too, so it was extremely fun to watch. For me, that went in the same category as like some partial seasons of guys like Chris Sale when he was on the White Sox in his prime, Jake Arrieta in 2015 in the second half, Jack Flaherty and Yu Darvish in the second half of 2019. It was like I am glued to my TV for every one of those starts because it's just so awesome, and that's like the emotion that starting pitcher can evoke when they're just like on their game. It's the best thing.
Yeah. It's just not being able to see that. It just, I can't let it pass for a list like this personally. Like,
of course, yeah, I have him as number 2.
Yeah,
but on just a talent perspective, number 1 by far, I think.
Yeah. I'm kind of getting the feeling that my number 3 is your number 1.
Okay.
You already talked about Brandon Woodruff, but we would be stupid to have Woodruff on a list that didn't also have Corbin Burnes.
Yep. Corbin
Burnes, the ace of the Milwaukee Brewers, and honestly, maybe the ace of the National League. He is just freaking insane. Everything that we've said about Garrett Cole, about like Max Scherzer, JV, all of that holds true for Garrett Cole, up to and including the strikeouts at a 30% K rate, a 6% walk rate, 243 strikeouts over 200 innings. He's Sandy Alcantara-esque, and he's a workhorse. He's got similar numbers to Garrett Cole and JV and Max Scherzer, and he's put them together. And he has what is maybe the most effective cutter by a starting pitcher ever. So, the way I'm talking about it, yeah, he probably should be my number one. But we're here for controversy. Number 3, Corbin Burns. Like, the dude's so good.
Yeah, I was just thinking when you were making those comps there, he is very similar to Garrett Cole, but he has a normal home run rate. So I got no problem with you having Cole as number 1 because he's done this longer than Burns has done it. Um, Corbin Burns really kind of came onto the scene in 2020. Before that, you may remember in 2019, I was really excited about Corbin Burns heading into that season.
Yep.
He ended up putting up an 8.82 ERA in 49 innings, and you were probably laughing at me at the time.
I laugh at you all the time anyway. It doesn't matter what you say.
That is very true. But I think I am laughing now about Corbin Burns being just so ridiculously good. I don't think anyone would have seen the 882 turning into Cy Young winner and guy that's on the top of my best pitcher list in baseball right now.
Yeah.
And I know exactly who your number 2 is.
Would you like to make the big reveal?
No, it's your pick. You got to make the big reveal.
All right, my number 2, and it feels weird talking about a number 2 as the final one. My number 2 went back and forth on what list he should be on. But we have the two-way extraordinaire Shohei Ohtani. And you could make the argument that some other guys have some better stats than Ohtani. And you're probably right. Shohei Ohtani isn't the workhorse that Corbin Burns is. He pitched 166 innings. His strikeout rate, higher, 33.2%. His walk rate, pretty on par. Really, the only thing about Ohtani from a pitching standpoint, stats-wise, that doesn't hold with a lot of these other guys is the innings pitched. And that's just because they're in a 6-man rotation trying to keep him healthy so that he's both at bat and on the bump. And like, he pitched a 2.33 ERA this year. And his FIP pretty much exactly matched it. Like, he can get the ball up there to 100 mile an hour with ease, but he's got a splitter that is just ridiculous. Like, he is. So I talked earlier about how him and Shane McClanahan early in the season was the most enamored I've ever been in a pitching matchup. And we were high up. We could barely even see the pitches. And I lost my glasses, so I definitely couldn't see the pitches. But I don't know. It feels weird to not have a guy that does that high up on your list, especially when you're talking about some other guys who they're not on the mound because of injuries. He's not on the mound because he's at the plate. So,
yeah. I mean, I didn't want to leave Ohtani off my list, but I just didn't want to put him on both lists.
That's fair.
So, yeah. So those are our top 10 pitchers. Do we want to save the hitters for another day so we don't have to rush through them?
I think probably, because otherwise it's just going to be rapid fire. And I know I definitely have some guys I want to talk about a little bit more.
Absolutely, yeah. We'll save that for another day.
Yeah, so I'll probably change the episode name to be who will be the best pitchers in 2023. So that we can use that name later. But yeah. I really like. Shoot, what did I do here? Dang it! Sorry, I got everything all screwed up on my end. There we go. So there are our lists: Corbin Burns and Garrett Cole at the top for each of us respectively. I do kind of want to hear people's thoughts on them, so we'll definitely post these onto the Twitter machine and the Instagram machine. And people yell at me in the comments, especially people who are mad that I didn't add Carlos Rodon into my list.
Yeah. What were you thinking?
I was thinking Hunter Green. I wanted Hunter Green.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. So we'll come back with a hitter list sometime in the future. This is a fun talk here, and really gets me thinking about rankings and the season and whatnot. We do have division previews coming up very soon, so we'll go through all the divisions just as we did last year. Really break them down and go through all the teams and
Probably
have
shouldn't
some fun with that.
go back here so I could actually look at my rundown. I didn't realize I was showing it to everybody. Oops.
Anything else you've got before we say goodbye?
I don't think so. I think that's pretty well it for me.
Okay. Well, with that, have a great night.
If you enjoy this episode, please make sure to subscribe on your favorite podcasting app or YouTube so that you never miss a future episode. On YouTube, you got to hit that subscribe button and that little notification bell to get notifications. You can also follow us on Twitter, Facebook, and TikTok at Getaway Day Pod.